Hey, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan. It's CrashTheMode. Today we'll be talking about Digimon. Starting off.
Alright, yeah, we're talking about the entire series.
Oh yeah. We probably should specify that. The entire series, and maybe, talk a little bit about the franchise, but not that much. Our focus will be on the anime.
Yeah, not really the movies that are, not, for the most part, don't have canon. For a lot of them.
I mean, that's just most anime.
So let's start off with the basic premise. I mean...
Oh yeah, the premise. Well, started with the Digimon virtual pets. It's pretty much like the answer to Tamagotchi, only, geared towards boys, more or less. But that went on for a little bit, and then, it was a Toe, that animation company, they were like, hey, let's make an anime of this. And it kind of took off from there, and then most people ended up knowing Digimon from more of the anime than the virtual pets.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was originally supposed to end with the Devimon, I think. But then they realized how big it was going to be, and then they decided to keep going.
Because seriously, that was 13 episodes or so?
Yeah, and we're fans of the dubbed version, and I know there's a lot of purists out there, but
fuck those guys. Sorry, go on.
We love sub people too, or original people that listen Japanese.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just it's like if you grow up a certain way, you kind of get used to it.
Yeah. So we grew up with dub, so that's what we decided to stick with as we went through the years. And I think that's what a lot of people grew up on. So yeah, basically it starts in 1999.
Yeah, and still going or no? Oh no, it's already ended. I don't know if it ended last year or no. I mean, by the time they got to season 6, I think it was 2012.
Yeah, it's in. I think it's
so. There's 2 seasons of that season. There were first part of season 6 and then the second part.
I do not. Let me think. It ended in 2012.
Yeah.
With the Digimon Cross Wars, and known in America is Digimon Fusion, and I think that's going to be airing later. I think it's supposed to be on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
So it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, and for the most part, at least in later seasons, they are quite they're separate worlds. Or for the first 2 seasons, they are connected. The first season, it follows a certain storyline, and they picked it up years later in the second, and then by the time you get to the third one is actually a little different, where, and we'll get to that later,
it becomes expanded.
Yeah, it kind of becomes like that, and it is connected. Yeah, it's a different world, but it is connected to the first 2, because, in this one, the first 2 are actually, they're not real in a sense in that world. Digimon is a franchise, and in season 3, there's video games, card games, stuff like that, all based on the Digimon show, season 1 and season 2.
Incredibly meta.
Yeah, so season 1 and season 2 are actually shows in 3. And then when you get to 4, 5, and 6, they're all unrelated, although there's something with 6 that may change that, but, we can talk about that a little later.
So, I mean, it starts off with a simple premise, these kids, they go to summer camp. It's the original kids were Tai, Matt, Sora, Izzy, Mimi, Joe, and TK. And they all have their distinct personalities. Some of them more stereotypical than others.
Some of them more annoying than others.
Yeah. And so what happens during the summer camp is it begins to snow, and these Digivices, come to them, and they get transported to into the digital world, and they end up getting partnered with Digimon, who are essentially their their life partner, that they can evolve using the Digivice in certain emotions.
Yeah, allows them to kind of cheat the process a little bit, because I believe Digivolution in the actual world takes a while, and not everyone does it there.
Yeah,
and they touch on that later, and shit gets dark.
Yeah, it's certain Digimon have grown powerful just naturally, and there's different levels where it's rookie, champion, ultimate, mega, and if you're a Digimon who has a partner, one of the so-called Digi-destined, then you're able to evolve faster and reach higher levels than what a lot of regular Digimon can. So like the first arc was the Digi-destined Devimon arc, where they're first arriving there, and like the world, like I remember, like it was just crazy. Like the world there is just crazy, and it's very science fiction-y, like idea of like there's like toll booths that call other dimensions and shit.
Yeah, it gets weird to say the least. Well, I mean, it's certainly interesting. It certainly has a style of its own, and you can see why it expanded the way it did. But yeah. So during that whole arc, like most people got their Digimon to the champion level, albeit for TK until like the very very end. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a decent arc where you're kind of like, well, it was like kind of like episode of the week arc where like they would kind of get into battles and like it was like, oh, I'm forced into like into a conflict that happens to fit my emotional needs at the time, and so then I evolve my rookie into a champion to save the day at the last minute. That was kind of the premise at the start, and we're introduced to the villain Devimon, who's kind of
I'm just evil to be evil.
not that really. Yeah, he's not really that interesting.
No, he's just one note character.
Probably the most interesting thing is when he managed to kill Anjumon, and it's like
the guy, bitch, I'm taking you out with me.
Yeah, I mean, just like I think that's really only like the first, like really that's like the first thing where like they're faced with a loss and.
Yeah, and then it's kind of undone now.
Yeah, it's
like most Digimon they can reincarnate as a new egg, and they still have the same memories and all that stuff, all that nonsense. But then they go on to kind of take away from that. Like, yeah, that gets interesting. So after that arc, they get into the whole searching for crests, which are items that could be used in conjunction with the Digivice, and they help their Digimon turn into ultimates, and they kind of go on a similar quest.
Yeah, so that kind of like it was kind of like a retread of the previous thing where you're like, oh, we have this emotional thing, we find our crest. But yeah, I mean, I hate the villain of this arc, Edamon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, was this a dub thing where he's doing the Elvis impression?
Well, I think if you look at the character, I think it's supposed to be like that.
I guess it was
he got
always
the sunglasses, the hair, I don't know if you call it the hair, but the way his shape of his head is.
Yeah.
His gimmicks. And sometimes, I think one time he's even dressed like him. I think they just want, like, all out in the English version. Like, oh, we can make someone sound sort of like Elvis.
Probably the most interesting.
And he played the guitar, huh?
Yeah, probably the only one that really got big character development at the time was, like, Tai.
Yeah, because he kind of sent Adamon away, who does return later, though.
Remember, there was a whole Skull Greymon thing going on.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Yeah. Like, the first actual ultimate on Digidestined side is actually Skull Greymon. It was just like...
Well, it kind of not on their side.
Okay, not really on their side, but I mean, the first Digimon on their side to transform would be Agumon. And he ended up going from Greymon to Skull Greymon because Tai was trying to force him to become ultimate. And interestingly enough, I don't think he had the crest to do that, right? At the time.
Well, I think he couldn't get it to work, and so he tried forcing it.
And damn near got them all killed.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the first one to get his crest, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe Matt was second, for Goblin on it, because that's normally how it works.
Yeah, I mean the Edamon thing was kind of boring.
Yeah, but they kind of fixed that soon, because he was your first major ultimate boss, and then Myotismon. He was the second ultimate boss.
Yeah.
And things got way more interesting with him, I think.
Yeah, once it hit the Myotismon arc, that's when it got dark. Like, they actually changed up the format where they're traveling and then they meet the villain of the week, and it turned it into a invasion thing, and they're preparing for this invasion, trying to figure out how to deal with these deal with these invading forces.
Yeah, because like my oldest one, he took it to their own turf. He invaded the human world, and that was interesting. And you get to see all their ultimates, but you don't see Anjumon's this art. But you do get a cool team up with Weregarurumon and Anjumon, and that was kind of cool. But a lot of things happen while they're in the real world, and they meet with Kari, who's like the 8th Digidestin, and she has her Digimon, which is Gatomon, who was a servant of my Otismon. And interestingly enough, because she was close with Wizardmon, they were kind of a little bit more than friends, I think it was suggested. And he didn't make it. He didn't get reincarnated.
Yeah, that was kind of...
He fucking died.
I think he became a ghost later.
Yeah.
Because he died, and so he died in the real world, he had nowhere to go.
Yeah. It's just like he died in the real world, he died for real.
And well, I mean, the ghost thing came back later for my Otismon, but
yeah, it's he's pretty cool though. He was the villain, but he wasn't really a villain. He was just sort of, he was doing the thing.
He was doing his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely the best art because it involved the parents, and most of them I found I didn't really find any of the parents that annoying.
No, they were just sort of there. But they all did some parts. They were pretty accepting of their kids being Digidestined, and some had to adjust more than others. But I will argue one thing with you. I don't think that was the best art. I think that was the build up to the next.
Oh, well,
I think that's where it really got awesome.
Yeah, that's where they took it to the next level.
Yeah, and it also includes, the first introduction to Megas. Because, remember, my Otismon, he ended up going Mega.
Yeah, Mal, my Otismon. Well,
no, Venomyotismon.
Venomyotismon
wasn't until much
later.
Yeah. But yeah, he became Venomyotismon in this series, and he forced them to go Mega. You had Gabumon, who had his whole line, Gabumon, Garurumon, Weregarurumon, ended up becoming Melgarurumon. And then you had Agumon who becomes Greymon and Melgreymon, and he became War Greymon. They took him down. Everyone's all happy. Then they kind of see that there's a rip in the skies of the digital world, and the passage of time is a little different. Their time in the real world is a lot of years in the digital world. By the time that was done.
One thing about the end of the arc with Venomyotismon, I found it. I found the prophecy thing kind of weak.
Yeah, very, very forced.
Yeah, very, very, very forced. It's there's this prophecy that if you say if Anjumon and Anjuwoman do this, then you can turn Mega. It's that's kind of a weak way to give Mega.
Yeah, I think it should have just been those were the most forceful characters, and it's their drive should have been enough instead of saying, oh, it's convenient that your siblings are the ones who have the Digimon that will be able to shoot arrows at you and allow you to transform.
Yeah,
away.
But one thing I found with the Myotismon arc, it's for the first 2 arcs, it's kind of how their parents had kind of fucked these kids up in a way.
Oh yeah, they do go on that. You get actual character development.
And the first, it's Sora's kind of, she kind of thinks her mom's disappointed in her, and Matsuke, parents are divorced, and so you can kind of see how those kids they're fucked up because of their parents, and then the Myotismon arc's all about dealing with that.
Yeah.
Actually, the first arc set it up, but the Myotismon arc actually.
Yeah, because it deals with them dealing with their Digimon, them dealing with their parents, them dealing with each other. So that was interesting. And then, you thought shit had gotten real, then you were wrong. After Venomyotismon, that's when shit gets real, because you didn't know what to expect next. You're like, oh, okay, they just went to the next step. They went to Mega. What next? Well, things get interesting. There's the hole in the sky and whatnot, and so they see that the digital world has changed, and they decide they have to go and save it. And it's like I said, the passage of time is much different there. A day here is a year there or something like that. And they were in the real world for quite a bit, so they go back to the digital world, and it's run by these creatures called the Dark Masters. And everything is warped. They have their own armies. Digimon are dying left and right. And they're like, oh, we've got Megas now. Let's go and rock it. No, they got fucked up.
Yeah, but it's good. I like how they spent the first, the first episode. They're back there. And it's they just get the crap beat out of them.
Oh yeah.
And it's there to teach you. He's yeah, this is gonna be different. They're gonna have to actually be kind of clever and team up.
Yeah, they struggled that whole arc. It was great. And yeah, so I mean, the Dark Masters arc, I think is my favorite arc just because, I mean, at this point, right? Yeah, it's still a children's show, but they're just like, fuck it, we're just gonna make this much darker. I mean, and Leomon, who pretty much just exists in these series to die, comes back, like, I mean, because, again, this is years later. We never see his ultimate form, but apparently he did achieve that, and apparently his Mega, because next time you meet him, he's no longer Leomon, he's Saber Leomon. And Edamon has returned, and he's no longer just Edamon, he's Metal Edamon. And I think they had a fight, and Saber Leomon ends up dying or something, and they eventually had to take out Metal Edamon, and you fight the Dark Masters, some which don't look that intimidating, and some do. Either way, they're all, like, not a joke. Like, you have Metal Seedramon, Puppetmon, Machine Dramon, and Piedmon.
Well, the good thing about this arc was there was only one Deus Ex Machina Digivolution.
Oh.
Magnanimon.
Yeah.
Because everyone else had reached the top form of what they were going to reach.
And yeah, they just had to still pull out, they had to save it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. And there was a lot of friction between the group, because everyone's trying to see, who had the best methods to defeat their opponents. And I mean, most of the arc is them separated. And this time by choice. It wasn't like, they got separated by some monster. No, most of them just went out on their own. Notably Matt, who's just like, fuck this shit, I want to do my own thing. And then he gets, there's the fight between Metal Garurumon and War Greymon. And I was pissed about the outcome of that, because it's like, it got cool and then it stopped. It was like, what is that? And yeah, like, all of them, it's just interesting. Metal Seedramon is like the most short-lived. But he did some pretty solid damage on his way out. And I think like War Greymon ended up defeating like 2 out of the 4 by himself. Where Metal Garurumon defeated 1, and I'm going to count it as a group effort with Paimon, but it ended up being Magnanimon that defeated him, even though he's a fucking Mega, mind you, and the most powerful of the Dark Masters.
Well, he does have
the Gate of Destiny is fucking cheap. It's like it just sucks things in. It's like, what the hell is that? But, yeah, it was interesting, and like, when they got to Paimon, that dude was just crazy. I know he was turning them into keychains. Like, wow. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, like this arc was like there was a lot of inter-group conflict where like it was much more about like them trying to deal with the group stuff instead of like, oh, my parents did this to me. And
yeah, it's like they got bigger problems now. It's like the whole digital world is at stake, and it's a very different place from when they left. I mean, sure, there was troubles here and there, but at this point, you have so many Digimon that did Digivolve, and a lot of ones that didn't make it, and they were trying to figure out what was going on, because, these 4 Digimon are ruling the world. But then, once everything is said and done, and they defeat them, it's not over. It is not over.
Yeah, the Pokemon.
Yes.
That was... Okay, I wish
I
they
like parts of it.
I wish they had foreshadowed it more.
Yeah, it just sort of came out of nowhere. It's like, nah, we're not done yet. They're just fucking with you.
It's like a video game where it's like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, Paimon was like the second to last boss, even though you thought he's the final.
And then you hear like this music, the final boss comes. It's like, nope, you're not done with this arcade game yet.
Like, fight it. Yeah, Pokemon, I think he was an interesting villain. Like, he had very like nihilistic ideals. And,
the dub was hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, why does everyone get the pizza and I get the crust? It was like, it's a very apt metaphor.
It wasn't threatening, but I found it entertaining. Just because it was so over the top.
Yeah, and I mean, he got sent. It made sense. You got why. But yeah, and also his very background is just so fucked up. Because, like, in this scenario, it's like, right, there's a lot of Digimon that, didn't make it in the Digivolution process. They died trying to Digivolve. He's made from all the Digimon that died trying to Digivolve. So he's made of failure. He's literally made of failure. And he knows it. He knows how he was made. And that produces some interesting things. I mean, unfortunately, it's just like a 2-episode like arc there, and they end up coming out on top even after being defeated by him.
Yeah, it's like you got erased, but you're not really erased. And even like then they ended up going like, oh, it's not. The crests were never really there. It was all in our hearts all along.
It's like, you got defeated, okay? You lost. This isn't fair.
It was in our hearts all along, though, Jordan.
No, it wasn't. it really wasn't. It's like, no, this is nothing to do with heart. No. This is like cold hard facts. You got destroyed. That's what happened. But I did think it was interesting that they brought him into that, and like I just wish they did like maybe spend a little bit more time on that, or at least handle it a little differently, because he really did like pretty thoroughly defeat them, and they just got out through bullshit means.
All right, so
But
let's,
yeah, so I think that was a good end though, because he's like, okay, this is like he represents everything that was wrong with that universe, and they ended up defeating him.
so let's talk about the characters for the season real quick. The Digimon. Okay, let's talk about the character and the Digimon partner. What we thought, and we'll talk about what we thought. Let's start with Tai, the leader of the group, and his partner Agumon. I'm not sure anyone really liked Tai. Like viewers like Tai because in many ways he's the bland shonen leader in the type of like Naruto and Goku, who are kind of stupid, but they're fun-loving, and they kind of inspire people to do great things. And, I mean, he's kind of different in that he's very stubborn and stuff, but he's got the same kind of, like, tropes of being brave, but brave and stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, he really didn't do anything for me, because he was kind of that kind of trope.
He's just sort of there. Less annoying than the season 2 counterpart, I will say that.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, if anything, he's just like, he wasn't really offensive. He was just sort of there. I didn't get annoyed with the character. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, and Agumon was kind of just there.
Yeah, he's just saying. It's just like, because there wasn't really, at first, there wasn't like an official leader. It just, they, for whatever reason, ended up being him. That's just how it played out, and I never really got that.
Yeah,
other than that, they said it had to go that way,
He started the goggles tradition.
Yep. The main character always having the goggles. Yeah.
There's Matt.
Yeah.
Who I know that was your favorite character of the group.
Yeah. Cause like, back then, when we first started watching that, they were about my age. So, it was kind of refreshing to see, like, a kid of my age portrayed in a show in a halfway decent way. I mean, he had immature moments, but he was like the more mature of the group. And probably the most fucked up.
Yeah, because he's dealing with the divorce of his parents, and so he's kind of overprotective.
Yeah, because like they're there, but they're so kind of caught up in their own business that they're like, eh. Then they split up the brothers instead of just saying, hey, you take them one day, I'll take them the next. No, they split them up. It's like, what?
Well, I think a lot of that was like supposed to be like TK was so young, so he was like kind of a mom's boy, but Matt was kind of like, I'm growing up and I don't want to be under the thumb of my mom. And,
yes, but I don't know.
Or maybe didn't want his dad to be alone. I don't remember, but
it was something like that. Like more the latter that you mentioned, but it was kind of odd because they all had their problems, but yeah, so he's kind of forced to deal with that, and he clashes with Tai like a lot.
Well, it's like he's so like empathetic that makes him. It's like
he's a liability sometimes.
It's like he understands how hurtful certain things can be, that he kind of goes overboard in trying to prevent those hurtful things from occurring, and so then turns like that happen. And then turns hurts people, and so then he kind of ends up alone, and then he's like, maybe because he understands how easy it is to hurt people, he prefers to be alone because he understands how easy it is to hurt your friends, and so it's a weird.
Ironically enough, hurting them by often going out on his own. But you can get the struggle. You get that. I think like he was probably one of the more developed characters.
There's Sora, who kind of disappears during a lot, I think.
Yeah, she kind of does, but she's a very likable character though.
Yeah, she's probably like the one you wouldn't mind hanging out with. Like she has her couple sad moments where it's mostly like the issue's probably mostly with her mom, and then once that's resolved, it's kind of like.
Yeah, she goes out and does her thing a lot.
Yeah, there was a one arc where it's like they were searching, where the group had separated after Tai had left, and she had kind of followed them around, helping them at certain moments.
Yeah.
she's supposed to be like the mother of the group, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, she pretty much lives up to that role. And okay, we can't forget about the Digimon too when we were talking about these.
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about Agumon. Let's talk about Gabumon and then Biyomon. Gabumon was my favorite, Digimon for that, his line of evolution. You know, it's just like fucking wolf, man. But as far as personality goes, he's pretty loyal.
He's just a loyal dog. He kind of is.
Oh, this case sounds bad when you say it like that. But I feel like he's like a lot more proactive when he digivolved, especially I feel like his Wergarurumon especially. And not too bad as Metal Garurumon, and Metal Garurumon is my favorite Digimon of all time. But we'll talk about it some more, but I just feel like a lot of the Digimon here didn't have strong personalities. It was more about the people than the Digimon. But, I mean, yeah, he was just pretty loyal, and Agumon was pretty plain. But what about Biyomon?
Yeah,
I'm saying that
there's nothing really to say about him.
No, I'm saying that he was loyal, Agumon was plain, and what about Biyomon?
She was the girly, so it kind of clashed with Sora, but that's plain.
Yeah. I mean,
let's
can't get more girly than pink.
Yeah, let's move on.
So yeah, she didn't really do much. She was just sort of there, and she was. I think I will say this though, Sora was kind of like the mother of the group, and Biyomon was kind of the one who was supposed to look out for her because she's like, oh, you're doing too much of taking care of other people. Let someone take care of you for a change or something like that.
So then we have Izzy, who's younger than Matt and Ty and Sora, but is not as older than TK. So he's
in the middle.
So he's wiser than his years, and he's smart, and he's supposed to be the computer guy whose battery on his laptop lasts forever, apparently.
Oh yeah, I want that. I want that computer. I want that battery. Yeah, she does solve a lot of problems with his intellect, though, and that's kind of cool.
He's probably the MVP of the group. I'd have to say. Yeah,
he's just he's weird, he's wacky, but yeah, he does get shit done. And he usually does kind of stay there when they're, everyone else is kind of falling apart. He doesn't go and try to fix it, but he just sort of does his own little thing there. And there was some issue with his parents, I think he was adopted or something, and they didn't tell him, and he found out or something.
Yeah, so he has to deal with that again. With the parents issue.
Yeah, there's always that. And how about Tentamon?
He's supposed to be a lot of times they try to make them opposites, and so that there's some conflict. So Tentamon was kind of more fun-loving.
But yeah, I found it interesting that I think he always tried to understand what Izzy was talking about, where everyone else kind of what the fuck are you talking about? He's kind of oh, this is interesting. He was very similar. I think he was probably the most compatible, besides Gabumon and Agumon, because they just fit their people so well. I think he was probably the most compatible.
Well, I guess if you look at the Digimon, you could kind of think of it as each person got the Digimon they needed. Ty needed
someone's
he didn't really need anything, so he was alright.
Yeah.
Because he had the normal family and everything. Matt needed a loyal friend, someone who would stick with him,
even when he'd go out on his own.
Yeah. Sora needed someone to tell her slow down and take care of herself. Izzy needed someone to bring him out of his shell and make him more fun. And yeah, we can go on as we go on.
Yeah, and okay, then there's Joe.
Yeah, there's
kind of supposed to be comic relief in some ways, but it has some good moments.
Yeah, he's the worrywart, the guy who's "Hey, we should slow down, be more responsible." Is the oldest of the group.
Yeah, he actually does make a good amount of sense in a lot of situations, and they don't listen to him sometimes.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been fucked if you'd probably listened to him.
The thing is, he's not. You may think, because he's slow, he's saying slow down. He's a coward, but he's not. Because often he'll just jump in to save people, risking his own life. He doesn't He's not go. What's his name? Palmon and Gilmamon. Same thing. Gilmamon. And save him. It's he actually jumps in with his physical body to save people a lot during the show.
And it's he does get ignored for that a lot when people do talk about that character because, it comes off as annoying sometimes, the way he talks, but it's he's just trying to, show people there's another way, think before you leap. So yeah, that's true. And how about his Digimon, Gomamon? He's just
Yeah.
The fuck do you say about Gomamon?
Well, it's like kind of opposite. Like, the guy needs like to tell him to, stop worrying all the time and just relax. And
Yeah, he's like super chill.
So Mimi, who's the they kind of
There's
play
just a dub thing there, and they fucked that up.
They kind of play her off as a valley girl, and where I think like the one thing you can say is she's her personality is she's selfish, and she's like
bratty.
She can be bratty, but she's loyal and she'll be there.
And when you often point out she's being a selfish little brat, she'll try to do something different. I think part of it was just she didn't know.
Yeah,
she's so used to being spoiled because her family's so damn rich. And she get used to it.
Yeah, and Palmon was the one she needed to, like, the person she needed to tell.
Yeah, because Palmon would kind of be like, hey, you're kind of being a bitch. Cut that shit out.
Yeah, then there was TK.
TK doesn't have a character. Like, that, I was like, no. And this one, he's more of a crybaby than anything, because, he's the youngest of the group.
Yeah, well, his thing's supposed to be, like, him growing up to be...
Yeah, but, I mean, I was never a big fan of TK. And it's just because, like, this one, right? It's like, you're an 8-year-old. Quit your crying. And, like, when Kari came along, she was much more mature. But, yeah, his thing was growing up.
He stopped doing that, and he ended up being the fighter, and, that ended up being, like, Hope. He never gave up at the end.
Yeah. Even
though in the beginning he was a little wuss.
Yeah. And how about Patamon?
Patamon was like him. Patamon was just a much crybaby of him. And I think that he needed him. Like the way he needed Patamon was he needed to be able to take care of someone else. So he could learn how to grow up into an adult. And when he turned into an egg, he had to take care of him and protect him and grow up.
Yeah.
And so that's why Patamon suited him the best.
Yep. Nothing like getting you to grow up and watching your Digimon die before your eyes, saving your life. Nothing like that, and then having to raise it.
And then Kari's the weirdest of them all.
She is her whole storyline.
Yeah, we need to talk about that storyline for the next season, Digimon Adventure 2, where that got weird.
Yeah.
So I guess we first saw her in that weird thing where it's like when Tai comes over, she seems to know about the digital world, and she's like that creepy kid from The Sixth Sense.
Well, I mean, in that case, though, there is a good reason.
Yeah, I know.
Because of the movie that actually took place before the series. It was actually made before the series. That's right. I forgot to say that. Where they did actually make a movie before they made it a show, and most people were exposed to the show first, so no one knows about that movie, which actually was canon. But Ty and her both know about the digital world. It's just like they were both like young because it took place 5 years before season 1.
Well, she remembers it.
Yeah.
But her personality, it's kind of like she's
Jesus. That's what she is.
She's very calm, collected, and she's calm and gentle.
She can do no wrong.
So I guess like Gatomon was like
very different.
Well, she's fierce and she's a fighter, and so I guess that's how she needed someone who's willing to fight for her.
And also, say it's okay to fight sometimes. Sometimes you just have to. There is no other option.
Yeah, because she didn't
very,
want to
very
fight.
peaceful and didn't want to fight at all.
Yeah, so I guess in their own way, they perfectly fit in that. But yeah, the Digimon could have used more personalities.
I guess they're just there to complement their partners.
I guess the problem is the problem with a lot of Digimon is they can't have a backstory because they were just there, and their entire purpose is to be a complement to the characters. They're not there as separate beings. They're there as a complement to the Digidestined. And so that's probably a flaw, and I think that kind of gets fixed in some of the later seasons.
Yeah,
I think Tamers kind of worked on that problem more.
And then by the time we got to 4, they just said fuck that altogether. Yeah. So okay, and I mean, I think season 1, in my opinion, was the best, and it didn't end there though. It kept on going. So I mean, season 2, where do you start?
Alright, so season 2, it's weird because I think they actually started airing, they actually started making it before season 1 was done airing in Japan. And it takes place like in 4 years later in the English dub, 3 years in the Japanese version. And they've got like a group of new kids. There's Davis, Yoli,
AK Ty 2.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, the new goggles kid.
Yeah.
Davis, Yoli, Cody, and then you got the returning TK and Kari, and then you have later Ken joining them.
Oh, we're gonna get to that, and that's fun. Ken Ichi Joji. It's just a fun name.
Yeah, I love that name.
Ichi Joji. But
so yeah, this takes place. We're going with the dub. Let's just say
4 years. It makes more sense actually too. I think that's why they changed it.
4 years after that.
Yeah.
Where they think the portal's closed and stuff. But, I think they figure out a way through the portal. It's implied they figure out a way through the portal sometime during the 4 years.
Well, I mean, they do catch on that. They had to stop like a crazy Digimon like in a movie, and that one was actually canon too.
Yeah.
And through that one, that they ended up having to like
use their crest.
I don't think that part was in the movie. It might have been. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. But they did eventually have to destroy the crest so that none of their Digimon could go ultimate. But it's supposed to like save the world, but it didn't stick.
Yeah, and so basically years later, the Digimon Emperor is like using his dark rings in the control spire. His control spires negate Digivolution, the traditional Digivolution. Somehow. And his dark rings allow him to capture Digimon and make him his slaves. And so he has like an army of Digimon. And so like 3 new Digidestin are called upon, Davis, Yoli, and Cody, to come help, in addition to TK and Kari. And they get a new Digivice called the D3. And they basically, through the power of like Digi-Eggs, which are based on the crest.
Not the Digi-Eggs that the Digimon birth from.
Yeah. And they're allowed to like use the Digi-Eggs to armor Digivolve.
Yeah, and they have like equivalent of Champion and Ultimate. And that's interesting.
It was very different. I like the idea of a dark Digidestin.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that, the Digimon Emperor was an actual human enemy. Like someone from their world. And they're like, oh shit. And he's just like running amok in the digital world, doing what he damn well pleased.
Yeah.
And doing a good job of it.
Yeah, they don't really, I think like, they don't really take full advantage of the premise.
They don't. I think later on they in fact ruin it by undoing some things. And
Yeah, they do. But I didn't like Armored Digivolution. I thought it was lame.
I was indifferent.
I liked Ken, but I didn't like that he basically every week he was like, "Oh, those Digidestin, they beat me again."
Yeah, I mean, but he never harped on it too long, because after stuff like that, it was back to, I'm gonna do crazy shit.
Yeah, and I think there were some, he got some cool hits in with like when he took over Agumon.
Yeah.
And that was pretty. That was where he was controlling Metal Greymon for a bit, and so they had to figure out that, and they got the second armored stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, he was pretty brutal too. That was the thing, and I like that. It's just like, because this is a human just like them, only he has very, very different motivations. He's a kid, and it's just kind of funny because they also couldn't figure out that he was Ken. Like, the All-Star, because, like, in the real world, there was the dude Ken, and, he's supposed to be like, I can pretty much do everything. And they couldn't figure out that it was him, because, like, he had a different hairstyle, different costume, and he had the glasses and all that good stuff. He even talked a little different.
But
still, couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, then...
But we knew, huh?
Yeah, everyone knew.
Everyone knew except for them. But...
Yeah, and I remember that Ty always like, I mean, I'm saying Davis.
It's okay. You could say
It's
Ty
like
because we all know that's what he really was.
Their soccer rivalry was.
Yeah.
Except
for, does it really count as a rivalry if like
I think
the other guy is losing horribly?
Well, I think Davis did get a goal in or something.
Yeah.
One time, but
I do hate that they got rid of that rivalry though. I think they work better as enemies personally, but
I think and then it culminated with the Chimera Monarch where he combined like was it Metal Greymon, Devimon, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
Into Chimeramon, and so you create a new ultimate.
And it's just tearing shit up, or you can have it across the digital world. And they had to create a new armor Digivolution, like using the golden egg.
It was a one-time thing.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because that was actually a cool evolution. Like, what was it, Magnamon? Or Magnagramon?
Yeah, Magnamon.
Yeah, it was Magnamon. Because Magnagramon's a different thing. But yeah, it was Magnamon. It had like the golden armor and shit. And it was cool. And then they just used it for that one time.
Yeah, and Wormmon, who was Ken's partner, had to sacrifice himself.
Yep, they wouldn't have won if not for him.
Yeah, and so they kind of... oh yeah, but the part I really liked in the arc was, do you remember when TK went kind of crazy up in the... That was one of my favorite moments where he's like, where like Ken was like, whipped his whip at him, and TK's like, who the hell do you think you are? I've seen this shit go down. I won through the Dark Master Saga. I don't know what powers you think you're messing with, but...
He's like, yo, you don't know about Magnagramon, son. You don't know.
Well, it's more like, you little shit. You don't know what kind of powers the dark side has, and you think you're the stuff. You've never seen a Mega before.
True, right? He did not.
You think you're the shit.
Hell, he didn't even see an ultimate because he had canceled all Digivolution. He had to create his own. But yeah, so I mean that was also like a little refreshing because TK pretty much had no personality throughout most of this. Save for a few moments.
Well, I think a big thing was like him. It was like basically dealing with the previous season.
Yeah. And people did touch on it though, like him being so restrained. But yeah, then things get weird when they get back to the real world. You remember, like they were going to country, and there's other Digidestin and other places.
Whoa, we gotta get before that.
Wait, what the hell was before that?
Okay, well, there's Control-inspired Digimon being created. And...
Oh, yeah, Arcanimon.
Yeah, and then they go through the Digivolution things, and eventually they go through the fusion, the fusions, they learn the different fusions, and there's the Black War Greymon saga.
Now who's skipping? They were in the real world by that point, right?
Well, they had gone back through the real world for a bit.
I know, that's what I was talking about originally.
I know, but the Christmas... Travel Around the World doesn't happen until later.
Does it?
I'm pretty sure it doesn't happen until later.
I don't know. But yeah, they had the Control Spire stuff, and Arcanimon and Mummymon working together and doing that stuff, and it was real that, they were behind some stuff. And then they created Black War Greymon from Control Spires. And he's like, nihilism. And, I mean, I enjoyed the character. He's a interesting addition, I felt.
Yeah.
And they got into the real world, and there were some weird parts there when they were going around the world and all that. Because one of the things that I was wondering, and I hate that they never touched on it ever again, is the Daemon Corp stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because, they had, like, Lady Devimon, Skull Satamon, and, they had, Marine Devimon.
I thought they should have been the final villains.
Yeah. It would have been nice, but they never touched on them. And
there's also
they had Daemon, huh?
There's also the weird thing where Kari gets kidnapped into the, Cthulhu universe dimension.
Yeah. And they want to make her a bride, and...
Yeah, it's weird. It's like they never got back to it.
Yeah, it's like, these are things that she perhaps should be focusing on.
Those were the interesting things. It's like, I want to know about Kari, and then there's like actually like relationship like growing between like her and TK and Davis. It's like, oh, she went missing, and so then they're fighting to find where she is, and so their relationship kind of moved on. develop from that. But then they just drop it, and they go to this weird... They decide to go back to a plot that's based on the previous season, when they could have been moving forward and expanding this universe.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like, you want to know more about that world. It's like, it's a weird world, and it wasn't the digital world.
Yeah, they could have been expanding like this idea that this they had come up with this idea that there's these multiple dimensions, and this does play a vital role in the final plot.
Yeah.
That there's multiple dimensions other than the digital world.
Yeah, and it's something like they touched on in season 1, hell, you know. And the thing that got me with the Daemon part though is like those are interesting fights, and then it's just like nothing happens afterwards. And like with Skull Satamon, it's just like, man, he was fucking them up. And they managed to defeat him only to fight Daemon, who was apparently a mega level Digimon, and then he doesn't die. He just sort of goes away and is like, we'll fight again another day. And it never happens. And I think his whole group is just like interesting because you're like, they're there for completely different reasons than any of the other Digimon that were running around. They're on their own agenda, and you want to know more about that agenda, but you never find out.
Yeah, and
because it's implied that Daemon ended up ruling another type of dimension too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
So, what did you think of the whole Oikawa and the Dark Spore thing? I thought that was kind of lame.
That irritated me. Because they brought in the Dark Spores, and they're like, those are controlling people, and then it's like, that is what made Ken smart. That is what made him the Digimon Emperor and all that stuff. And I think it would have been a much more interesting story if all of this was his actions. I mean, fine, I don't like the redemption angle so much, but it's like, if it was just him redeeming himself from those messed up actions that he did, I could deal with that more than, oh, he didn't actually have any responsibility for those actions at all.
It kind of reminds me of like when they go at the end, oh, it was all a dream, so there's no consequences.
It's a giant fuck you is what that is.
It's like when you remove like the fact that they did something bad, and you can say, oh, there was no, so they were mind controlled, so it's not their fault, there's no consequences to their actions. It kind of takes away any kind of weight that season has, because it's like, well then, why do I care about this guy redeeming himself? Why do I care about him growing as a character when it's not his fault at all?
Yeah, and I think that's a shame because he actually did show growth before they revealed that, oh, he didn't really show any growth because the rest of it just didn't happen. Because before, right, he's like, he understood why a lot of people were mistrusting him. He wanted to right his wrongs because he ended up being responsible for the death of the one person who always had his back. And it's like, he went from being evil to like trying to make up for that. And it's like, fine, if you're going to do that, do it well. And they were doing it well. And then they stopped doing it well.
Well, I did find like the idea of Oikawa interesting. Well, there's another human villain, but he ends up being kind of controlled too at the end.
That was lame. I think it would have been interesting if they kept it as it was. You know, that he had this dark, tragic story. Because what it was, I think it was something like, Cody's dad was a cop, and he was like best friends with Oikawa.
He ends up dying.
He ends up dying, and Oikawa was feeling sad because he had no friends before. He grew up like very lonely, being the weird guy. And I think that was interesting, and then they fucked it up there.
And it was like interesting because like he was like one of the guys who believed in the digital world, and he had always wanted to go there, but he never could. And so here's this guy like they've been given what he's always dreamed of. They get to go there because they're destined to. They got partners because they were destined to. And he's there his entire life without a friend. And so there's this tragic story, and like he ends up dying like a few inches away from the digital world.
Yep, so close.
And watching his partner. And his partner is like, he's like, I'm finally here. And there's his partner. And that's a good part, I think. But like, I think they screw up by bringing Malo Myotismon.
Just out of nowhere. Like, what the hell is that? Like, seriously, he came out of nowhere.
See, like, it goes back to like Apocalypse. For like, Apocalypse was so over the top.
It made up for that.
I was kind of entertained. I was entertained by it. But Myotismon was like the traditional, like, oh, I'm evil.
It's like, and even though you defeated me 4 years ago, I'm still here. Ha ha ha. It's like, you suck. Because, like, with Pokemon, I could get over the whole coming out of nowhere, because it's just like, yeah, he's been watching this whole time, but it's like, what, Myotismon, it's like, yeah, it's been that way too, but it's more annoying, because, like, we already had this villain, why are you bringing him back?
And then they had the exact same kind of, like, talking thing. Like in the first season, remember they were all floating around talking, and like, you know what, we have grown up. It was our powers inside us all along. And then And in this version, it was like they were living their like ideal dream or whatever, and then like Davis talked them out of it, like, hey, this isn't real, blah 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 blah. But it's like kind of like there's that talking head thing where you need to telegraph the solution to all their problems,
and you gotta like how Davis was the only one who didn't.
Because it shows how bland a character he is. He had no problems.
Yep, none at all.
He's just the writers
he's just so into his own world.
He lives in the perfect world already.
Yeah, because like the real world, it doesn't affect him. It's not like he's even in denial. He just doesn't give a fuck. And it shows there, and it ends up paying off at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like the original Digidestin, the other ones, they make cameos and stuff.
Yeah, and seeing them in the future is just weird, because like Matt's in a rock band, he's with Sora now, and Ty is
sort of jaded about
it.
The original?
I think in a very, very
maybe
slight
like one
way.
Scene, maybe like one scene or a couple.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't strong because that wasn't the focus back then, you know?
Maybe that was a translation thing where we missed some stuff.
I don't know. I still felt like that made more sense than Ty and Sora, even though a lot of people would disagree. Because, you know...
But I thought it was hinted that Ty had a crush on her in the first season.
It was not only hinted, it was established.
Yeah.
And, in fact, I think they touched on that in season 2.
Yeah, they did. Where
he was sad that it kind of went that way, but it was what it was.
Yeah, he was going to give her a present, but it turned out she was with...
Yeah, and that's like, that's awkward. But, again, I think those two made more sense, even though Ty had a crush on her.
And then there's the thing that pisses me off more than anything else at the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. That whole, like, hey, this is the future. Let's
say
what's going on. Yeah. Everything was a little weird. So, the funny thing is, Kari doesn't end up with either TK or Davis.
And I was like...
She becomes a teacher.
I was alright with that because they at the end, they just chose not to develop any of those relationships.
Yep.
Even though the first half of the season, up to Kari, like, I think he kind of like plateaued with Kari getting kidnapped, and then TK coming to save her, and then they just dropped it really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just hate it. It's like it was like the Harry Potter epilogue that I hated.
Yeah, because everything is just like, wait, what? And some things they didn't even hint at, like where the characters would be. Like, Matt and Sora didn't end up together.
Matt ended up going to fucking Mars.
Yeah.
Did he end up going to Mars?
Yeah, wasn't he also a detective? Or was that someone else?
I feel like Ken was a detective.
And
yeah. Yoli ended up being a housewife, even though...
Yeah, she ended up being married to Ken and being a housewife, even though she was all like, no, that shit's not cool. It's like, oh, way to kind of backtrack.
Was she like a strong, like...
Yeah, she was a strong, like, woman. And
like,
strong women do stay at home sometimes, but it's just like, it didn't seem like it would be in her character. She was always, like, going out.
Doing stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like computers, so you think she'd get like a job with computers or something?
Yeah.
But it's just like, if I don't like have problems, like I guess TK. I was like, if any of those characters was gonna be a stay-at-home character, I feel like TK would be like a stay-at-home dad.
I could see that. He just has that vibe about him. He could be a stay-at-home dad.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like a male or female.
No, it's just like some characters you just kind of expect them to be more like family oriented or.
But I guess he kind of digs.
Stay at home.
I guess he kind of digs. He ended up being an author, so I guess he could be both.
Yeah.
I guess he could be both. He ends up being both, I guess.
Yeah, and I still don't get the whole Matt Quinn anymore. I don't know what that is about. And does Sora have a job?
I think she's like a florist, or she took over her mom's thing or something.
Yeah, it sounds like a crazy little family.
Because like she took over. Yeah, she was wearing a traditional dress from what I remember. I think she probably took over her mom's business.
So yeah, so it's like you got a florist and an astronaut, and they have like a million kids, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that Yoli and Ken?
I think Yoli and Ken.
Yeah. And let's see. Kari had become a teacher. I don't know what happened to Ty.
He ended up becoming like a diplomat.
Oh, okay.
Which suits his personality. I mean,
because
he got smarter in the second season. He wasn't as dumb as he used to be.
Growing up, how about that? And Izzy, I just assume he did something tech related.
Yeah, I think he started one of the big. I think Ty was diplomat between the digital world and. Yeah, and.
Davis ran a noodle cart.
Joe became a doctor.
Seems appropriate. He's always talking about it.
Yeah,
and fixing up things. Mimi did something.
Fashion design or something.
I knew it was something.
I feel like I could look this up, but I don't feel like it.
I wouldn't.
Because I don't like the epilogue.
Yeah, it was kind of weak. That whole last bit of it was weak.
And then they all have kids, and their kids have Digimon like them, and it's like, oh, isn't that great? Like, no, it isn't. But I feel like part of it might have been like, we don't want to continue the storyline anymore. We're putting a nail in this coffin.
Because we all know that works, absolutely. But yeah, I think so. But it's just like it was a little weak, bit of a letdown. But then you got.
One thing I did like was they kind of reduced the cast, because I felt like there was never enough time for the entire. Because now it was down from 8 to 6 in this one.
Yeah.
Even though they then decide to spread it around stupidly later with like a million side characters.
Yeah, it might not have been for the best.
You know, the international kids, and then the old Digidestin come back for extended cameos, and so then like, oh, we'll take character development off the main cast and focus on all these side characters for episodes at a time when we could actually be advancing these characters. But, you know,
yeah. Although I do say I like that big last battle with Black War Greymon, though. That was cool. I like Imperial Digimon and War Greymon, even though, you know, Agumon was selfish, took all the right to Digiball. But, I mean, they had some good moments, but, I definitely wasn't as good as the first.
So let's try to go quickly over the characters.
Oh yeah, let's breeze through that.
We got Davis, who's
he's like Ty with less character somehow.
Ty, but less interesting, more annoying, and dumber.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how that works, because like, how can you be less interesting than Ty? He's not that interesting, and how can you be dumber? I can get how you can be more annoying, because Ty wasn't really horribly offensive. He was just sort of there. And then to make matters worse, he looked kind of like Ty, and he had a thing for his sister, and that's odd.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot to say to Davis, other than he's pretty stupid for the most part, pretty consistently. But you can't help but laugh over his antics sometimes.
But yeah, he's much more of that trope where I say like Goku and Naruto.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna win. Ah.
Then you got Yo Lee, who's,
I don't know,
like the computer person, but she's, how should I put it? She's like
Girl Izzy.
She's like Girl Izzy, but more stubborn.
Yeah, like more developed. Eventually, you know, her own character, but she feels the same role.
But she's more stubborn and less confident. She's like a less confident, more stubborn Izzy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, but she comes off as more confident, even if he was actually more confident.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like deep inside, she falters at a lot of moments, whereas he will step up.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I actually liked her character for the most part. It's just she had some annoying moments.
Well, they would have moments where she was whine, and I'm not sure if that's
that wasn't
dub
good.
or
It probably is. I don't know.
Then there's Cody, who's very bland.
Yeah,
he's
very
mature
quiet
beyond his years.
And,
maybe making a case for why TK was, I don't know. It's like, would you rather have Cody, who you forget about a lot, or TK, who cries a lot?
Cody. Okay. I don't like crying. It irritates me. It irritates the shit out of me.
It's just like I forget he's there a lot, and he doesn't like. I guess he's the most. I guess he's kind of like Kari, except for he's more stern. He's very traditional.
And when he gets pissed, oh man, he is ready to fight when he gets ready to fight.
Yeah, but he probably gets closest to TK, I guess, during the series.
Yeah, because I mean they're pretty similar.
TK, I feel like this entire season was about him dealing with the trauma of going to the digital world, like PTSD.
Yeah, I've seen some things, man. Seen some things.
Yeah.
I've seen my Digimon die right before my eyes, man. I done fought megas. Seen all sorts of things, but
then you had Kari, who like you feel grew the most sense and like pretty confident, and you know she's friendly, affable. Probably the only thing is where she gets kidnapped.
yeah.
I'm not really sure like what growth.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't feel like she really grows that much of a character because, I mean, it feels like they tried very hard to make her, like, not infallible, but pretty damn close. So, like, she doesn't really receive a lot of growth because they didn't really make her character that flawed. Like, maybe a little bit more in this season than before, but not in some horribly undoable way, you know?
I guess the only flaw would be like she's friendly, but she doesn't really get to understand the character like the other people on a deep level, and so they kind of deal with that in the fusion.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird to have, like, her and Yuli.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like people like her, but they don't really know her because she's so perfect. She never has that like dramatic moment. And
So yeah, that'd be the one thing.
And it was only that one. She probably at the end she's closest to TK because of that thing where she gets kidnapped in their shared adventures. But yeah, then there's Ken, who's probably the most interesting character of the season by far.
Yeah, he probably has the most character development.
Oh yeah, because they got the tragic thing with his brother dying, and him going to Ken going to the digital world, and they actually have his own video game.
Yeah,
it tells the story of his adventures in the digital world.
And what was it with Ryu? Or no, it's not Ryu. Is it Ryu, and who shows up in like everywhere in the shadows. But yeah,
he was like makes a cameo. Like you see.
Yeah, and it is odd to see at first because you're like, what the hell is this? But yeah, you're right. He had a video game, and that's where he first met Wormmon. I think they were there around the same time.
Well, I feel like this season was very I got confused at parts. I was like, I feel like there was something else going on that I missed. And then you read online later.
Yeah.
It's like stuff like this where he's like, oh, there's the video game that told the story about.
Yeah, he goes there after his brother died and all that.
Where like Ken and Ryu defeating, what's that villain? They
some mega level Digimon, I think. Was it Diablemon or Inferno or something? I don't know.
Well, yeah, they just show like him, that Digimon collapsing and disappearing. If you see it, in the flashbacks. But yeah, the Dark Spore thing kind of took away some stuff for me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's like they didn't have to add that. It was a good story without it. Adding it actually hurts the story. But I do think it is interesting that even with the Dark Spores, he did still like take responsibility for some of that stuff. And I think he does really have the most growth because, the stuff with Digimon Emperor to stuff right after it to eventually accepting what he did. Spore or no spore, and just like being more confident about things.
Yeah, but is it me or did Digimon have even less personality this season?
I think they did because I mean, if you notice, we kind of skipped over them for good reason. Nothing really happened with the Digimon; they weren't really memorable.
The only one was Wormmon.
Yeah, and I think it's because with the other ones, they were pretty much like their partners for the most part. They were just like
I don't remember Hawkmon's personality. I just don't remember it.
Hawkmon was probably the least one that stood out because she was just sort of there. Like Yoli was so abrasive, she had so much personality that Hawkmon didn't really need to have any.
I guess Armadillomon was kind of like Palmon, where he's a goofball, but that wasn't really. We kind of seen that.
Yeah, because he just needed to lighten Cody out. But like Vmon was pretty much Davis in digital form.
Yeah, and we already know Padma and Gatomon. And yeah, Wormmon was most interesting because. Yeah, because he was like trying to get him turned good, and he ended up sacrificing himself. Then coming back is a badass.
Yeah, because like I mean, at first he's just getting pushed around, abused, and all that stuff. But oh man, when he showed up as Stingmon, he's like, "I'm through fucking around." He's like, "This is my evolved form." Yeah, Stingmon was cool.
All right, so
yeah, because I mean, they didn't really go into real like detail about the other members, so. Yeah, I mean, that pretty much takes it off. It's like the Digimon didn't have too much character, and some of the actual people didn't either. But yeah,